So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the process of automating CorelDRAW. Now, I am using CorelDRAW X6 in this example, and we're going to be automating CorelDRAW by creating a macro using Visual Basic. So as you're working with CorelDRAW, you're going to find that there's certain things that you do all the time, over and over and over again, that would just be helpful if we had some automation. So I came across this particular thing that I've thought about for a while now. It's like, you know what? I really want to learn how to automate some of these tasks. So we have a situation here where I use CorelDRAW quite a bit for creating the 2D woodworking plans. And one of the things that we have to do quite often is we have to um, create these material cut lists. And as part of that, so for example, in this case, we have this piece of wood and we have several pieces of this piece of wood. We have 8, in fact. So in order to make duplicates of this, what I would typically have to do is copy it, right-click, hold my control key, that constrains it to, or shift key, that constrains it to a perfectly horizontal position, and then I have to snap it perfectly on that line, and then, so now I've done it 3 times, and then I would have to copy it up. That gives me 6 times, and then I would have to copy it some more, and that would give me my 8, okay? Or I might have to take these 2 and copy it down here. So normally what I would do is I would line it up here, okay? And then I would set my nudge value to 2, okay? And then I would take those, and I always have it 2 inches apart. That's just the formatting that I use. So you can see here, this is a bigger cut list here, and you can see that I have 3 that I can cut out of one board, 2-inch face, and then my next board, and then my next board. So you can see that's kind of the formatting that I use. But I have to move these things manually, and you know, that is less than ideal. So what we want to do is we want to create a macro that will do these things for us automatically. Now, I would like to preface this video and say that I really don't know that much about creating macros or the VBA programming language, but I do want to encourage you that you don't need to know a lot about it. Once you kind of dive in and just start somewhere, you're going to see a lot of repetition. Now, I do want to just show you something here, just to kind of wet the whistle a little bit here. So we're going to go into a macro that I worked with. You can see these are all macros. You see all these things? Macro, 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 lots of macros. But I worked with a gal. She lives in Wisconsin, but she is of Indian descent, and she worked with me tirelessly for several years to create all the code for this Easy Stone macro. Now, this is a commercial product for creating rhinestone designs here in CorelDRAW. So this has just a whole litany of amazing functionality. Just some of it's really crazy functionality, like just the the code that went into developing this. Like I said, she spent absolutely years developing this. And this was something that I used to use every single day and used to be a huge time saver. Now I don't do rhinestone designs anymore, but back in the day when I needed a tool, this was really an amazing tool. It still is. I just don't use it for rhinestone designs anymore. But the reason I bring this up is because I wanted to show you there's a function in here that would, these little buttons, their purpose is to do the offset. So watch. If I hit the up arrow, guess what happens? You see that? Or if I hit this arrow going over here, so these buttons do what, so you see that? So it actually does what I need them to do. Okay? So you can see that there. So what I want to do is I want to scare you first, and let's look at the code of those buttons because I just want to show you something that's a little bit nutty. I think it's a little bit nutty. So let's go in and let's see, what do we want to do here? That is, let me think here. I tell you what, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's go into Form Blend Extended here. And so this is our form, and there's our button. So if we double click on that button, we can look at the code. So you see here, this is the sub. It's the command up button, and you see it says the offset and move, I should say, offset and move. So what it's saying is we want to run this function, or this sub, I guess you could say. So if we hit the edit and find, right, and we're going to find the offset and move, you could do the current module, you could do the current procedure, you could do the current project. Let's look at the current project. Okay, where is offset and move? Well, there you go. Function, offset, and move. Well, that was quick. Okay, so there you go. This is what it is. Okay, so if we look at this, now I just want you to take a glance at the code. See all this? These are all various variables and things, and you can see here, and then it says if you do this, do that, and the other, and then you keep on going, and then this, that, and the other, and 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 you just keep going, this, that, and the other. It just coulda, shoulda, woulda. All this stuff, believe it or not, is that function. Whoa. And there you go. All of that code just to bump that up. Now, the reason that this is so complex is because this particular function, this is a ridiculous number of lines of code. This particular function actually does quite a few different things. Okay. Yes, in a nutshell, it does copy whatever the current selection is, either up, down, left, or right. But there's a lot of possibilities. Well, what if it's this, or what if it's that? Then it should do this. Then it should do that. And that's what all the ifs and things are in that code. So it's very, 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 very complex. So we do not need anything near that complex. So what we're going to do is we're going to develop our own macro. So first of all, if your macro manager is not open, you can access it through Tools, Macros, and there's Macro Manager. Now I'm using CorelDRAW X6 in this example, but if you're using a newer version, it should be somewhat similar, although in the new version, I don't know exactly when they switched over, but it's something like this Scripts Manager. The other thing we need is our macro toolbar, this is what our macro toolbar is right here. But if we right click anywhere in this gray area of where the toolbar could go, you'll see there's macros, and now the macro toolbar is gone, and then presto changeo, it comes back. Okay, so we do need that. So what we're going to do here in Macro Manager, we're going to hit File, New, Macro Project. Okay, and let's do my offset. So we'll call it my offset new. So this is where we're going to put our macros. Okay, there you go. And you can see there's my offset new, and there's nothing in there right now. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to create a new macro. So you can see here, there is an option here. It says macro editor, and so let's go ahead and go into that. Okay, and let's find my new offset. So there's my custom. Then this is all my Easy Stone stuff. Okay, so we're gonna go to my offset new. Okay, so here we're gonna hit a new module. Okay, so you see there's module 1. Now we could name this something like my custom macros, something like that. Okay, my custom macros, and then in my custom macros, we could define what we want to create. So right now, what we're wanting to do is just create some baseline code for offsetting of our shape. So let's just type in sub offset up. There you go. So this is where our code is going to go, right here, for doing the offset. Okay? So that's kind of the first step. Now if we go back over here to CorelDRAW, you can see under my offset new, we have offset up. Okay? Now, this is one tip that I'm going to tell you about. The best way to start getting comfortable with macro automation is to just look at macros. Okay? So there's a shape. What is it that we want to do? We want to duplicate a shape and move it up however high it is. That's what the offset up, right? Boop, we're going to offset it up. So that's what we want to do. Now, here's the thing that's important is we don't know how to program VBA. So what we have to do is we have to go to Google and tell it, hey, this is what I want to do. How do I go about doing it? So let's come in here to internet browser here, and you can see here this was let's go here. Let's start off with a brand new inquiry. So I type AI VBA. And what do we want to do exactly? Well, we're looking to move object equal its height in VBA, or I should say in CorelDRAW. Something kind of like that. Okay? Something kind of like that. So we're asking the artificial intelligence VBA move object equal to its height. And let's do move objects because we do want to be able to work with a range of objects or just a single object. So there we go, okay, in CorelDRAW. So let's see what the AI gives us. So what I was saying about learning like macros, it's best to look at macros. So let's just look at what the AI gives us. Move object up by height. Okay. The dim shape is a shape. Declare a shape variable to represent the selected object. Then it's saying if the selection count is nothing, then just exit out. And then it's saying set the shape object to equal the active selection dot shapes dot item 1. And then it's saying dimension the object as double the object height equals shape object dot size height. and then it's saying that to move the object by the object height. Okay? So let's just copy and paste that code just exactly what it was given, even if we don't understand what in the heck all that was about. Maybe we can decipher it. And that's kind of the idea here, is how to decipher code. And the more that you decipher, the better you're going to get. So the first thing I want to do is I want to not have anything selected and just click on this. Move object up by height, double click. And you can see immediately it gives us this problem. Object does not support this property or method. Well, that's interesting. So let's go ahead and hit debug. And this is what it's saying. Active selection dot count dot equals. Okay, so we're going to stop right there. This, I think, is really important because while the AI sometimes will give us a nudge in the right direction, it doesn't actually do a perfect job of figuring this out. Okay, so you see what it says here. It says if active selection dot count equals 0. Let's do this. Let's hit F8 on our keyboard, F8, and we're stepping in. We're stepping into the code. And now notice right down here in our locals window, to access the locals window, you want to click on that little icon right there. This is going to help us keep track of our variables, okay, and what's happening or what's not happening, okay. So we have this variable, shape object as shape, and you can see that here it says shape object equals nothing, okay. And this says object height, the value is 0, okay. Now this is interesting because generally when that happens, you notice the object height is not defined up here. Only the shape object is defined. So what is object height? Well, object height is used, but there's no value for it. You can see it says it's a double, but there's no place for it. So this line right here is probably that piece of code there. Not probably, it simply does not work. Okay. Now, actually, I do see here where the object height as double is defined down here. So that variable is defined actually. So, but right here we have an issue. So if I hit F8, okay, now when I hit F8, that's when the issue becomes. It says object doesn't support this property or method. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit end. Now, if we have no clue what to do, because we really don't, I do have kind of a clue what we could do here, but if you have no idea why this doesn't work, let's just go back to the AI. So what is it we need to learn? Well, we need to learn how to get the current shape range, or the current, let's just do it not by a shape range. That's what you eventually need to do. But let's just, how do you get the current object in VBA? Let's go back to the code just so we can really understand this, what we're asking. And if we really wanted to, we could even skip this altogether. I don't think we necessarily want to do that, but we could skip this altogether. Okay. So let's see here. Let's go back to, let's just see once. So okay, so let's see AI VBA, how to select, how to check if anything is selected, and let's say any shape, right? Any shape is selected in CorelDRAW. I always add that in CorelDRAW because a lot of times it'll give you some VBA for Excel or something like that. Not gonna. So you see, it says check for selection. So what it's saying is dim SR as shape range, set SR to equal active selection range, and then it's saying it's if shape range count is 0, then give us this give this message box, right? Else it's saying no shapes are currently selected. So let's just copy and paste that. Okay, so this is how we can work our way through this stuff and learn as we go. So first things first, check for selection. Let's see if it functions at all. It does, because it says no shapes are currently selected. Well, that's cool. Now if we select a shape and click on it again, shapes are selected in this document. Okay, so we know that that function is working now. So let's go back into the code. So now that we know that function works, what pieces and parts can we use for that for the move object? Well, let's do this. We are going to declare the shape range object. So let's do that. Okay, so dim shape is shape range. And then we want to set the shape range to the active selection range. Okay, now remember we did this if selection.count blah blah blah, and then look here. What we're saying here is something similar, but we're asking it for a shape range. If the count is 0, then it says, or greater than 0, it says the shapes are selected in this document. Else, no shapes are selected. So we're going to choose this. If shape range is greater than 0. So if we come up here, what are we saying up here? Here we're saying if the selection count equals 0, then please, so we're going to say equals 0, then this, and then this. So we're just going to change up our wording just a little bit. So then we don't need that. Okay? So now we're saying if the selection or the shape range count is 0, then please select an object first. Exit sub, end if. Okay? Then it's just going to continue on to set, in this case, we need SR, which is our shape range. Set SR. Now we have to go back down here, set to the active selection range. So when we're choosing set, instead of using this, active selection range. Okay? Then what it's saying is the object height as double and the object height equals shape object, which in this case is not shape object, it's SR, size height. And then it's saying to move our SR to equal the object height. Now let's see if that works. So look at there. Did you see that? Now let's put that right there. And let's move it up. And now you can see it moves it up. Exactly what we wanted. But now we have to add in one extra step because we need to duplicate it first before we move it up. So what we want to do there then is right there before that, I guess we can go right after that, we just want to hit the shape range and then duplicate. Okay, now we could have gone back into AI. In fact, I did, right here. How do I duplicate? Duplicate selection in CorelDRAW. So it gives us this example, but then you can see basically that's how we got it. So we already defined a variable. Now you'll notice this little bit of code, there's no variables. There's no variables that are defined. But in our code, we did define SR as a shape range. That's what we're looking to duplicate. And so you can see here, that's how I knew to just type in. So here it's saying active document dot selection duplicate, where I knew that SR is the shape range that's already been defined, and then that's how I knew to just type in dot duplicate. Okay. So now when we look at that code, now when I say move it up, watch what happens. See, we have a duplicate, so we have the original, and then we have the duplicate exactly up the way we want it to. Now, what if I select both of those and do up? Now you can see it took the height of them, both of them combined. Okay, so now, boom, we've got that figured out. So what's next? Well, let's go back into our code. And let's go ahead and copy all of this code into a new sub. Okay, and now we are moving object down by height. Okay. So now we're going to move object down by height. So what do you think we need to change in all of this code in order to do that? All we have to do is, well, I think all we have to do is type in negative object height. I don't know if that will work, but we're going to try and see. So in theory, what we're looking to do is we're looking to take the object height and duplicate it down. So we're going to hit down, and look at there. We have it duplicated down. See? It's pretty easy stuff, right? So now let's go back into our code. And now what do we need to do? Well, we need to copy that code again. That same code. And let's enter. And what do we want to do? Let's go left by width. So left by width. Okay. So what do we need to change in our code? Well, the only thing that I suspect that we need to change is we need to flip-flop this. So the 0 needs to be, if we back this out, and one thing I guess that's important to note is the X and the Y, okay? So Y is up and down, and X is left to right. So you can see here the value that it's expecting is delta X and delta Y. Okay, it's separated by a comma. It shows you that right there. So we are going to move SR. We're going to move, let's see, let me think about this. Yes, we want to move in the X position. So we're going to do X, and then we're going to do object width Okay, and then, or no, we're just going to do width. Heck, I don't know. Oh no, we are going to do object width. Yes. Sorry. I got to think about this for a second. And then comma and nothing in the Y position. Okay, because we're just offsetting left or right. But this won't work. Object width will not work because you can see it's not been defined. So what we have to do here is we need to change this to object width, okay, as a double, and then the object width is equal to the shape range size width. Okay? So if we come back to the top, we've declared our shape range. We've set our shape range to be the active selection. We've checked if there's nothing selected to throw that error box. I don't think we've actually confirmed that that works like it's supposed to. And then we set the shape range to the active selection range. Do we have that twice? Looks like we do. We already have the set SR to equal active selection range. It's not going to hurt to have it double declared, but we don't need that. So here we're declaring object width as a double, and then we're choosing the object width is the size width of the shape range. Excellent. And then we're duplicating it, and then we are doing it in the negative object width. Okay, so that should work. Now let's clean up this. If we let's clean up this where we've set our. We don't need to declare that twice. Okay, so we'll get rid of that declaration, double up declaration, and that, just to kind of keep the code a little bit nicer. Okay, so now let's try it. So we'll select a shape, and then we are going to move object left. And you can see it moved it left, and every time I click on that, it moves it to the left. And then if I were to duplicate up, you can see it does in fact duplicate that up. All right, so moving right along here. So let's go ahead and then, so we want to go ahead and do the move object left. Go ahead and duplicate that particular one. And then we are certainly going to change that to be right by width. And then the only other change we have to do is take away the negative. And so that will obviously offset it to the right because it's a positive value. So it's going to go to the right. So there we go. How fun is that? Okay. So now we have the functionality kind of the way we want it. We could just come over here and hit that, and it'll slide that right over for us. No questions asked. And that works really well. Now, if you remember in my previous formatting, we had this where we were offsetting it 2. Okay, offsetting it 2, offsetting it 2. Okay, so I want to have another macro that will allow us to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go back into the code. We are going to select right this time, and we're going to create another new sub. And this one we're going to say nudge object, and we'll call it nudge object 2. Okay, so here we are doing the SR shape range. We're setting it to be the active selection range. We have this message box if we don't have anything selected to then exit out of the sub. But if we do have something selected, then it's going to declare the variable of the object width as double. The object width equals the shape range size width. We are going to not duplicate, so we can delete that because we don't want to duplicate it in this case. We're nudging it. And you notice here it says move object width plus 2. Okay, and that means, and because I'm in inches, that means plus 2 inches. Okay, plus 2 inches. So now watch what happens. So let's select that, and we are going to move object to the right. Okay, but now I want to nudge it 2 inches. And so you can see now it's been nudged. But it's been nudged the width of the object and 2 inches. And that's not actually what we want, now that I think about it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to edit that. And we don't want it. It's just going to be 2. We're going to move it 2 without nudging it. So what I would do is I would offset it to the right and then nudge it 2 inches, and there you go. It's been nudged 2 inches. Okay? So that takes care of all of the functionality that I was looking for in terms of the offset functionality and that little 2-inch nudge functionality. So in our next video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to show you how to create a form for our new functions and also how to call the macros that we just wrote and also call our form to appear here inside CorelDRAW. So I hope this was somewhat useful for you, a practical example of why we might want to create macros. And then, yeah, we'll just keep going on. Thanks for watching.